Please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This is the public comment statement. The town of Chatham Town Hall appreciates the information received from the public during the public comment portion of the meeting, which often is helpful in the governance of the town. It is, however, not intended to be a debate with the public or a question and answer period. Issues raised during the public comment may be addressed by the board during its regular meeting or by the supervisor between meetings as necessary. As a courtesy to the other members of the public, there's a 5-minute per person limitation on oral comments for each public comment period. The public is also encouraged to provide the board with written comments or materials when the subject matter cannot be presented in this time fashion. Of course, while the board discourages any remarks which may be considered defamatory or stigmatizing, it will not restrict the content of the public comment. So we go into our first public comment portion of the meeting. Please, if you would rise and state your name.
Would you like to comment now on the alcohol consideration in Crellin Park, or you can do that later?
We'll have another comment section, so you can speak now and then speak later.
All right, I'm Tom Kroll from Chatham Brewing, and I'd like to encourage you to consider it. I think based on our experience working public events at a number of venues, including other municipal venues, it can work quite well, especially with the requirements the State Liquor Authority puts forth. When we go to a venue like Crellin Park, in order to sell alcohol for a special event, we have to apply in advance for a permit from the Liquor Authority. And in that permit, they ask obviously for the municipality's approval, but then have us show a number of considerations, including security, how we're going to go about making sure that everybody who is consuming alcohol has been properly ID'd. They ask that we provide a site map and show a controlled area, whether it's fenced or roped or under a structure such as a pavilion, but where the alcohol is limited, so it's not just open air consumption anywhere. So it's in a defined area with security, some manner checking IDs, the hours, if there's adequate bathroom facilities. They ask what the local police jurisdiction is, whether it's the sheriff's office or village police, etc. So that they have a process in place in their permitting just to allow you to come and then, whether it's selling or giving away alcohol, that it's put in place for a venue such as this where there isn't a permanent liquor license in place. So I thought that might give some comfort to the board in terms of understanding how the process works from the Liquor Authority side of things. And then, in particular, we have an event. I know John Stillman is here, who I think will also speak. But we have an event coming up at the park where we think alcohol will be beneficial and think it can be done in a way that would not have a negative impact. To certainly understand some of the concerns that people expressed about alcohol in the park and children, etc. But I think it can be handled properly in a way that would benefit both the town and groups seeking to use the park for that manner.
Thank you very much. Any other comment?
I'm not a resident of Chatham, but I spend a lot of time here every spring for the last several years. I'm a co-founder and co-organizer of an event that many of you may have seen or heard about called the Farmer's Daughter Gravel Grinder. And we bring about 400 cyclists every May, the weekend after the Sunday after Mother's Day, into Chatham. We started it here. I live up near Saratoga, but we started it here because I had some experience with the great dirt roads that you guys have and maintain so nicely. And I said, this would be a great place to have the kind of ride that a lot of people actually kind of, not the 19, 20-year-olds as much as older folks like me and people in their 40s and so on who just want to have a good time, aren't into racing, but want to have a good time and challenge themselves. And So I came here partly because of what I saw in the area, but also I had met Tom through a cycling club where we're both members, and Tom was a sponsor of our club, and we got to know each other and started talking about doing this, and so thus the beer connection, but also because there's a tradition in the cycling community, especially the off-road or dirt road kind of cycling community, that when you finish a big ride, you have a beer. And most of these events around, particularly around the Northeast, but everywhere in the country, they're often affiliated with a craft beer company. So we, to keep it short, we bring a number of people in from Columbia County, Hudson Valley, Capital District up north. We get people from Canada, a lot of people from Boston area, Western Massachusetts, Connecticut. So it's a pretty diverse group, all coming into Chatham and the surrounding environment and having a good time. We've had, everybody has acted very responsibly, and we'd love to see an ability to, my co-founder and I have had many years in the cycling community, and we know how to put a good event on and how to keep things going peacefully and smoothly, I'll put it that way. And so we in the first 2 years we have had Tom, Chatham Brewing, serving a free pint of ale, the Farmer's Daughter Ale, that's the name of the event. And it's worked out very well. We've never had any issues with people misbehaving. And we'd love to be able to continue that. This year, after working with Mike West on a venue that we wanted to get a little closer to the dirt, to start a little closer to the dirt roads than the fairgrounds, where we had it previously. We worked with Mike, and we're going to be using Crellin Park, regardless of the outcome of the alcohol permitting that you folks are deciding upon. But we'd love to see us be perhaps even just an experiment for you. We've got a good group of people who know how to behave. And Tom has told, I did specifically ask Tom about how many beers people typically buy or get, including a free one. He's told me that not many people come back for a second one, which doesn't surprise me because people are pretty tired after doing 67 miles of climbing the mountains out toward Massachusetts, and they have a good time, but we make them work for them. So and I did send everybody an email, so.
State your name.
Oh, I did. I thought I did. Jonathan Stillman. Sorry. Thanks.
My name's Mitchell Cazola. I get tired driving 67 miles. A resident of the town of Chatham some time ago desired to take their 50 acres and make a spiritual retreat on it. And they were told, obviously, because they live off a dirt road, that they could not do that. They asked when it was going to expire. This was sometime last year, and they were told in March. I got a call this morning. Obviously, they're being told that there's a possibility that this is going to be extended once again. They couldn't make it tonight. They'll probably be here for the public hearing. But they wanted me to express their desire for you to rethink the extension of that moratorium. I believe that it's overbroad. I think that if there is something specific about a dirt road as opposed to any other road that you want to stop site plan review or special permitting, that you exactly say what it is. The only thing I could imagine the differential would be traffic. And I'm sure you have a great highway supervisor could tell you exactly what threshold of traffic makes it a little bit more burdensome for a dirt road than a regular road. And I would ask that you check into that. I always thought that that moratorium was overbroad, and I never really understood the purpose of it. If you wanted to stop special permits and site plan review in the town, then it should be done on all roads, not just dirt roads. So there has to be something special about dirt roads. So I ask when you discuss that and before you cast it, and obviously this will be repeated during the public hearing next week, that you take that in consideration. Thank you for the opportunity to talk.
Anyone else?
if I may.
Sure.
My name is Tom Kenny, and I live in the village. I'd like to reference the 221 posting on the town's Facebook page, on which was posted a picture of a snow-covered Main Street in the village, but with a copy referencing the town highway department and the hard work they do. Quote, keeping our roads drivable and safe. The impression given or made is that the town plows and maintains Main Street in the village of Chatham. And as we know, they don't. And if you don't know, the state actually does that. Now granted, an apology and a clarification were posted in the body of the posting, but the image remained, sort of having to read the fine print of a contract in order to understand what's happening. At the 216 board meeting, Linda Siskine, if I'm pronouncing her name correctly, a member of the communications committee, was adamant and rather forceful that if guidelines were developed and posted, it would give her justifiable cause to delete certain comments on the Facebook page. Realizing the fallacy in that, and with the conflict with the First Amendment, the board voted to drop the Facebook page. So I really have to ask, whoever posted that, knowing that it couldn't be deleted once it was posted, was it put there to mislead the public? Excuse me. So in other words, it's posted, can't be deleted, all you can do is say, I'm sorry, and now people think Main Street is plowed, maintained by the town. Damage done. Adding to the credibility of what the post is inferring are the likes that you, Mrs. Lowe, and you, Mr. Swartz, gave the posting 5 days after you voted to drop the page. So I ask myself again, what's going on? And I really have to refer back to a town board meeting on 11/17 in which Tom Curran, the mayor of Chatham, voices his concerns over being taxed for services the village doesn't use, where Mr. Balcom writes off his concerns by stating that this is a one-time charge, maybe, where the town clerk confronts and somewhat verbally assaults the mayor with an excuse or with an expense line of A5130 that doesn't exist in her paperwork, as if his concerns don't matter, and where Mr. Swartz stating that one of the reasons why this was done was that village residents use town roads. But when queried by somebody off camera asking, don't town residents use village roads? He says, yes, they do, but. So my question is, but what, Mr. Swartz? So I'm wondering if the Facebook posting was put there to mislead the public into believing that the town's DPW does work on all village streets, and the town is justified in enacting a so-called one-time charge that isn't listed as a A5130 because village residents use town roads. And all that this has truly done is foster an atmosphere of us versus them, a problem that has plagued this board since its inception. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, relative to what you're saying is, I think that we all want to recognize both highway departments for doing a very good job. The county, the state, the village, and I don't think that picture was an error, so. Okay.
I just got a question for Tom. I don't believe I made those statements, Tom.
Yeah, I watched the video like 3 times, Henry,
That
so I could make a statement like this and know what I was talking about. You bring up the fact that village residents use town roads. Somebody off camera right over there, you can hear clearly stated, well, don't town residents use village roads?
Right.
And your response is, yes, but.
Because that's the answer that was told to us at the time of the...
I'm not arguing with you. I'm saying, what was your response? Yes, but. That's on the video. Video doesn't lie. That's why she's videoing.
Henry, would you like to introduce Sheriff's Deputy Garvey and?
Yes.
We're going to discuss the alcohol policy.
Is that the last public comment? I mean, is that...
I don't think there's anyone else that has anything else to say. So we're going to discuss the alcohol policy, and And I made a suggestion of bringing our insurance agent and someone from the sheriff's department.
We've had a lot of discussion going back and forth about alcohol being allowed in the park. We felt that we needed to get more information from other people. One of the key people that we felt that we needed to have here was our insurance representative, which was through Crellin from Westwood Harder. And then we also felt we should have somebody from law enforcement here. We contacted the sheriff, and he sent one of his deputies, Jason Garvey, to come up and speak to us anything that we may have on legal questions. So I guess at that point, it's just, I think we can open it up for more comments.
Well, let me bring up Deputy.
Well, I had spoke to him, and he wasn't really sure. I didn't have a presentation.
Oh.
His thought to be here was if a legal question came up about enforcement in the park,
Okay.
if we have a local law. So he would answer questions that were put to him rather than having a presentation for us. Am I right with that?
Yes.
Okay.
First of all, sorry, I'm Deputy Garvey. I'm the resident deputy of Kinderhook, the village in town, Chatham, the village in town, and it also encompasses Valatia as well. That's why the sheriff sent me here, because unless I'm needed elsewhere, I stay in those towns. And I don't go anywhere else unless there's some kind of major emergency. So, I mean, I'll be happy to answer any questions I can answer. I can't speak for the sheriff himself directly, obviously, but I can try to field any questions that you may have that can help the situation.
I do have a question.
Sure.
If they were to allow alcohol in Crellin Park and there was an event there, okay, and you were called to, I guess, monitor the entrance to the park.
Okay, well, first of all, what do you mean by monitor the entrance to the park? There's a couple aspects to the way you can look at it. And I'm only speaking because from being there, starting my 9th year, if say there's an event held at a park,
Right.
if the town, so this would be the town of Chatham, if the town requested through the sheriff's office that the sheriff's office provide security for the event, that could be a possibility. But what do you mean as for monitoring?
Well, the reason why I kind of bring it up is that the town of Kinderhook, or the village of Kinderhook, excuse me, has a number of events, two in particular that come to my mind. One is a craft event that they have in June, and the second is in December. I don't know technically what they call it, the Midnight Candlelight Vigil. And the sheriffs provide
Are you referring
deputies.
to the Valatia Winter Walk?
No, Kinderhook.
Okay.
Kinderhook. The square in Kinderhook.
Yep.
Okay. And you guys have provided deputies there, and I asked one of the organizers for both those events who paid for the sheriff, and they indicated that they did not pay for the sheriff. So my question is, if requested to come to the Crellin Park, who would pay for it?
That's out of my realm.
Well,
If so,
you said ask questions.
okay, well, I'll give you the answer to the best of my ability.
All right.
If the sheriff is requested to provide some type of security,
Mhm.
the sheriff's office is then going to work out, I'm assuming, with the town or with whoever holds the event on who's going to fund that security.
Okay, so the question is
I
up in the
can't
air.
100%, but I don't believe that the sheriff's office is going to send security to an event and the sheriff's office is going to pay for it. I don't believe that is the route that it would go.
And you can ask the economic development coordinator for Kinderhook. That's the person I asked. Her name is Renee
And
Sherrill.
and
she
the response you're
indicated-
saying is that the sheriff's office
Provided
itself
a deputy,
provided it,
yes.
and the sheriff's office.
I don't know if it
So
was
Columbia
requested.
County, in other words, you're saying footed the bill for that security.
As far as I know, yes.
That I can't speak on because I don't know.
Okay.
So that would have to be a question for somebody higher than me that
Higher than your
handles
pay
the
grade.
finances at the sheriff's office, because that's not this
Okay.
deputy.
No problem. It's a question that should be addressed, though.
Would you like to come up and sit at the table?
Sure. My name is Gary Van Allen. I'm from Westwood Harder Agency. We are the broker for the town insurance. I thought it would be wise just to explain how the policy works currently. Since the town is not in the business of selling or distributing alcohol, you do have coverage under your policy, the way it's written now. So if you were to allow events in the park, there would be no additional charge on your policy and you would be protected up to the limits of the policy. Across the state, you'll find municipalities that do it many different ways. But a lot of them do allow alcohol, some of them don't. That's really your decision. If you were to allow alcohol, there are some steps and procedures we can help and recommend. Use of facility forms, applications, proper insurance from the people having the event. We actively review all certificates for other municipalities when they have these events. Make sure that the vendor has the proper limits and has the proper coverage. And we'd be very happy to do that as a service. And it works very well. So when you make a decision, if there's some resources that we can bring to help with loss control and helping you set up a program, we'd be happy to do that. There's no charge for that.
Would we have to increase our coverage?
Well, you currently have, should I share the limits? You currently have $1 million of liability with a $5 million umbrella policy. So for any one accident, you have a limit of $6 million. And you can certainly explore what the additional costs would be to raise the limits.
What would you say that the vendors' insurance should be?
Vendors should be a minimum of $1 million, and they should also have liquor liability coverage in addition to their general liability.
And with that, would we recommend that they add us to theirs as an additional insurer? Is that something that should be done?
I think you should do that whenever you have people using your facilities, whether there's alcohol or not. So again, going back to the use of facilities.
Okay, so my thought was on it, and some of the questions I think that arose was, if we had somebody who's signing to use the park, I don't want to specifically say the brewery, but say the brewery is going to use the park, and they're going to have another agency serving the alcohol, we would want proof of insurance from both people, both the person who is signing the contract to use the park, and then also a second one from the person who's actually serving the alcohol.
That's right.
If it's two separate people. In their case, it may be one and the same, but I know there was a proposal in front of us a while ago that there was going to be one organization doing it and a second organization doing the actual serving of the alcohol.
Yeah, you would want a certificate from all parties.
Okay.
So you'd want one from the bike club,
Mm-hmm.
and you'd want one from town's business as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious, how frequent is it that insurance companies end up having to pay claims on events? You know, it's just something, you know, we all hear about how we need insurance. But just from I think what our concern is, yes, our liability, but beyond that, what are the real risks that people are facing in terms of accidents, whatever, that might involve this or require insurance claims?
Yeah, I'm celebrating my 42nd year in the business. I've seen 2 liquor liability claims in those 42 years. They both came from establishments that sell alcohol. Typically there's not a lot of activity or claims from events where people are using your facilities. That's usually not the case, particularly with adults. It would be different if there were children using a playground, and there's typically more claims, something like that, but not many with use of facilities.
And in the case that we were talking with the bike event is where the kids' playground is more up front. This would be done in the back section of the park, away from where most of the youth would be playing at that time. It wouldn't be during our day programming like that. It would be a separate time. And so I think we're definitely separating that there would be so much interaction between the people that were in the back maybe drinking and our children up in front. So I think that's the way it was trying to be designed, to try to do that for the town, am I right?
Yes, yeah, when we toured the facility with Mike, we said we're hoping to have a fixed pavilion for registration, et cetera, and then talking, it seemed like that back pavilion made more sense if the town were to permit alcohol use, to be a much more discreet location, because you got those bird firms, so it's fully separate from, as you say, the areas that get more heavily used in the park. So it really would be able to keep it out of sight and much more regulated and controlled, which again is what the liquor authority is looking for. They want it very nicely controlled so that you know who's has access to the alcohol, so you don't have somebody underage sneaking in and getting a beer. We carry liquor liability insurance as well as general liability insurance. The majority of our staff, including myself, have gone through TIPS training, which is the server training on how to recognize underage and overserved people, how to make sure that all the alcohol laws are conformed to. So I think it can be done responsibly. And, in our 10 years, we've never had an issue at any of the events that we've participated in.
We only have, I think in the first 2 years of running the event, we only had two to three junior riders as well, and because we kind of singled those people out. The first year we gave out a little kind of a beer-centric jug, a half growler, and we didn't want to give those to minors for obvious reasons because it was really only used for beer. Subsequently, we've gone to a beer glass which could equally well, in fact, it's shaped like a Pepsi-Cola can, so it's a little more innocuous, but we do a good job of identifying the few people who will not be able to drink a beer and police that along with Tom. We also carry insurance, liability insurance, event insurance with the National Cycling organization that handles all the professional cycling events in the country and the Olympic events and so on, called USA Cycling. And we basically, our clubs buy insurance from them, and all the landowners that have given us permission to ride on their land, they're covered with a certificate. It's a simple matter for us to get you guys a certificate. And, whoever you work with, I echo what he's saying is you really want to make sure you have that stuff and that it's done right and with a reliable insurer.
In the past, we've held these events. There was a gentleman behind who was concerned about security. Have you ever had that in the previous events?
No, the only interactions we had with the police were getting a lead-out car at the beginning to take us through town from the fairgrounds, and we've had very good relationships with the police. And it's not, I mentioned this in my email, we don't have a race, so I give a little speech before we send everybody out, and there is a race guide printed that people should have, but telling them, look, this is not a race, so you're not going to have, like a race would have, you're not going to have police and fire officers at every corner to make sure the traffic is stopped. We have a couple of places where we may stop traffic for a moment, but other than that, everybody is supposed to obey traffic rules as if they were riding on their own. So we don't use any kind of real professional security or police. We let the police and sheriff's offices know that we're going to have the event and ask them to just, keep an ear to the radio in case something does happen if there's an accident.
As far as the afterwards goes, people are trickling in over the course of several hours, from 1:30 to 5:30. It's a little common, as John said earlier. They'll have their reward beer, their celebratory beer, and something to eat, and then most of them get in their car and go home with whoever they came with. It's a handful of people will have a second beer and stick around and have more lunch, and there's music and stuff. But it's definitely it's not. There's not like a big crowd standing around drinking. It's a very.
Not an Oktoberfest.
Yes, exactly. Good way to put it.
I'd be interested in knowing that from the law enforcement side. I know a number of towns in Columbia County, they do serve liquor in their town parks. And just as I was asking about insurance claims, I would be interested in knowing two things. One is how common or rare is it for there to be any need for any kind of law enforcement intervention at an event where alcohol is served under controlled circumstances. And second, in town parks that do or don't, in the town parks that do permit alcohol, is there more of a problem, for instance, people drinking it when they shouldn't be, than there is in towns that just don't allow it at all? In other words, we know that sometimes groups of teenagers find a spot to have beer or whatever, but I'm just wondering if there's any difference in frequency in towns that don't.
Are you looking at this from just an event?
Well, I'm
From an
looking
event
at,
side
there
of
are two
things, or
different
from-
things. From an event, the event thing, but then in general, I think one of the concerns that people have about having alcohol at all in our parks is that it's sort of opening the door to permissiveness, I guess. So I just wonder, but the first question is about events.
Do you have any specific events in mind that you're referring
Well,
to?
I know that, for instance, of course, the village of Kinderhook has its food truck night and that sort of thing. And I believe that Kinderhook has fairly liberal alcohol regulations. I may be wrong. I thought that that they do, but I'm just wondering. There are events there.
I know that
the
the sheriff's office is made aware when the food trucks are there and the events going on, but I cannot recall a specific the sheriff's office asking to be there and posted on site.
And you're not, haven't been called for
I cannot
somebody.
recall any problems of any out of control violence or anything of that nature whatsoever. The only other event I can think of where you obviously see the sheriff's at all the time is the Chatham Fair, where there's the big beer pavilion, beer tent. I can only speak because I only was there last year, but there was zero issues the entire time. So I guess if what you're asking is, I don't see a frequency of things getting out of control or people going too overboard where the sheriffs have to be there. Sometimes, like I said, the sheriff's office is requested to see if they can provide a deputy to be there. He said, I don't know how the workings of who's paying for that.
Yeah.
That's out of my pay grade. But I know that constantly the sheriff's office is requested to, can a deputy be here? Can a deputy come to the board meeting? And that's, but as for things getting out of control, I don't see that. More of a rarity than it is, an every time occurrence.
You mentioned the village law, both Village of Kinderhook and Village of Chatham, and they have open container laws which they suspend specifically for just that window of time when the event is happening. And I assume the town has an open container law, but I don't know. But that would be something to look into, and because I think it's different having a event specific permit for alcohol as opposed to just the carte blanche. The public can bring alcohol into the park and consume at any hour.
The Village of Kinderhook does not allow an open container in the parks, except for the special events.
Yeah, because I was trying to remember, I did, back when we were talking about this before, just look at, go through on the web and search out liquor policies in public parks and towns, and it was all over the place, from none whatsoever at like we have, to some say, yeah, bring your wine and beer as long as nobody serves them to minors, you know, but it seemed to be all over the place. I don't know in Columbia County if there's anybody who has anything for other than just events. I don't know. I don't remember now from what I was looking.
I did speak to the lieutenant of the sheriff's office and also the sheriff about some of the events that were happening throughout the county. And at the time what I said is they found that there was more problems after hours on the patrols coming, that there were people being in the park after hours drinking, not so much after an event or at an event, just being in the park when they're not supposed to be and consuming alcohol all the time. And that's where I found, I checked with the village of Alacia, and I also checked with the town of Kenbrook, and they were both told me that's when they had complaints, that's what their complaints were, and they would call whatever police agency at the time to come in, and I'm sure that's probably what you're seeing too.
And you know, we're told to patrol these areas, and if there's a situation that, I mean, obviously every situation that you run into that is going to be different, and that's dealt with on case-by-case basis according to, you know, what whoever the officer on scene is feels that they need to do with that situation.
All right, would you like to add anything to the conversation?
The only thing I thought to mention out loud is in terms of, I'm sorry, I forgot your name.
Deputy Garvey, Jason, whatever you'd like to call me.
Deputy Garvey mentioned is the only recollection of being called into such an event to deal with something surrounding alcohol use was the beer tent at the fairgrounds, and just something I just wanted to put out there is what we had talked about with the Recreation Commission was that it would have to be a permitted event and also up to the discretion of either the town board, the Recreation Commission, or both as to what that event would be. And I guess basically what I'm getting at is if alcohol use was permitted for events in the park, we wouldn't be looking to have, you know, kind of outdoor bar situations or night raves kind of. I view the beer tent as a little bit more of an adult, somewhere between just a bar and a club almost kind of thing, big loud music, that sort of thing. So I think that something to recognize is the events would be carefully thought about and appropriate for the park. Family event type stuff, I guess is what I'm getting at.
Have you had any problems at all with the Oktoberfest? I mean, because we have been party to that, and that is, you know, we are part owners of the municipal lot, so.
No, we're not.
We've already entered into these types of agreements.
Right.
Yeah, that's a
It's just a
good
different
point.
piece of property.
It's a different piece of property,
Yeah.
that's right.
I just got one more last thing on it is, I'm sure everybody saw this petition
No, I
in
wanted
the
to bring
box.
this up and I wanted to read it. I
Okay.
wasn't gonna read all the names.
There's 106 names on it. I did count.
122.
Okay, mine only had 106.
This was a petition that was distributed to the town board, and it says, "We, the undersigned, petition the town of Chatham board to decline the request by the Chatham Lions Club to serve any alcoholic beverages at Crellin Community Park, which is designated a smoke and alcohol-free zone, as per the town of Chatham Park Rule Number 4. Alcohol beverages and smoking." This is Park Rule Number 4. "Consumption of alcoholic beverages and tobacco on parklands is prohibited. We are a smoke and alcohol-free park." And this was in response to a public hearing back in January 19 for the Chatham Lions Club, who wanted to handle tournaments there. So this is 122 signatures.
And with all that being said, the Chatham Lions Club withdrew their petition to do that. They did not want the publicity that this is getting. They did not want the alcohol to be brought along, and when you think of Lions Club, they did want you to think of alcohol.
Yeah.
So that's one of the reasons why they decided to just leave it alone and not to push it to move on. It just, they felt that their name was more important than having this alcohol attached to it. And so I want to make sure that's clear, that the Lions Club is not pushing for the alcohol.
No, they're not on the table at all for
No.
that at this point.
So,
And the other piece of correspondence that we received was from Jonathan Stillman, a lengthy email to all the board members, and the town clerk has it on file should anyone choose to read it. But Jonathan was kind enough to recap the highlights of the event and how it would be run and sponsored by Chatham Brewing.
If I may just say one thing, first of all, I'm happy to answer any questions that you guys might have after the meeting via email. I'm a quick responder. And secondly, one thing I didn't go into detail about in my talk was that we are a nonprofit organization. We give every bit of money that we make every year we give to good causes, and the bulk of it goes to the Columbia Land Conservancy and one other mountain biking group here in Columbia County. So in addition to what we do in terms of bringing a lot of good folks into the Chatham areas, we give back everything we make. So.
do we know when we may make a decision on what we may want to try to do with the alcohol? Is there?
I think we'll have it on the agenda for the next meeting because John should be here.
Okay.
And then we can take a vote. Okay. So our next meeting is March 16th.
I just want to say, I think, though, just to be, I think that there is, I would say, something of a consensus that if we go with alcohol, it would be under a very controlled circumstance. And, and the choice is not between just opening the park up to alcohol and keeping it closed. It's a matter of doing it in a very controlled and responsible manner.
And just to add on to that, I know we touched on it briefly earlier, but with these events at which alcohol might be permitted, there would be no youth activities scheduled for the same area of the park on the same days. And I've already gone as far to make sure that none of our soccer teams or baseball teams are scheduling events or games for the day of the bike race, in case we do decide to go this route. But it's not something where there's going to be a lot of youth group intermingling with the events, and that's easy enough to schedule around for me.
Okay. Very good point.
The other thing, your park is really nicely designed to have a back area that's very private and a front area that could be very public. At the same time that an event was going on, there's some berming, and it's one of the things we talked with Mike about was if it made sense to do it, it's kind of a natural barrier, but we could even rope off the back area and just say, look, this is effectively a private event at this part of the park, and I don't think people could even see it going on except for the bikes coming in and out. So it's a nice aspect of the park in that respect if you wanted to do some permitted events.
And outside of organized youth groups or adult groups and walkers in the park, that back area is generally not used on the weekends. It's fairly non-used. That is, our only two bathrooms are back there. However, in the summer months, even into the fall and into the spring, we have porta potties up front by the pond as well. So the bathroom thing wouldn't be an issue.
Okay, well, I think that concludes our discussion on the alcohol at Crellin Park, and I want to thank you, Gary, for coming.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Deputy, for participating. It was very helpful.
You're welcome.
And if you decide on a positive, we'd be happy to help
Okay,
with the program.
that'd be great. Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Gary. Appreciate it.
Joe asked us to, if you remember in his, Joe Rickard's report, truck number 75 had issues, and at the time it was running, as of yesterday, it wasn't. And he made the Waterways Committee that in order to get it up and running, he was going to have to spend about $3,000 and then sell it for somewhere between 8 and 10. If he didn't put that money into it, it'd be virtually put it on the auction. So he just wanted me to report that to you. That's what he was going to do. Okay, we have a couple of resolutions here. This is a resolution regarding the Planning and Zoning Board of Appeals members with continued education credit, whereas the state and the town law provides that effective January 1, 2007, all planning and zoning board and zoning board of appeals members in New York State, as well as alternate members of those boards, must complete a minimum of 4 hours of training each year. And whereas the above sections of state law provide that a planning board or zoning board of appeals member shall not be eligible for reappointment to such board if they have not completed the training by law. And whereas the above section of law provides that the legislative body of the town specifies which activities qualify as training to satisfy the state requirements, and now therefore be it resolved that the training provided to the planning board and the zoning board of appeals members and the code enforcement officer by town attorney John Lyons and town planner Nan Stolzenberg on February 22nd, 2017 from 6 p.m. to 8:30 p.m., 2.5 hours of continuing education, and February 23rd, 2017 from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m., 3 hours of continuing education, shall be considered approved by the town board to satisfy the continuing education credit for 2017 for those in attendance who sign the certificate of attendance. And further be it resolved that the training received by the planning board member or zoning board members in excess of 4 hours in any 1 year can be carried over by the member into succeeding years. And further resolved that the Department of Planning and Zoning Appeals clerk shall create and maintain a system of tracking the training individual members completed annually, and such information will be presented to the appointed authority prior to considering a member for appointment. Can I have a motion and a second, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? It was a very good training session.
Right.
And everyone felt it was very good. Okay, I'll take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is resolution number 62 of 2017, authorize a public hearing for local law number 2 of 2017. Whereas the town board of the town of Chatham is considering a local law to impose a 6-month moratorium on special use permits and site plan review for parcels located on unpaved town roads. And whereas a public hearing is required before the enactment of said local law. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Chatham hereby directs that a public hearing will be held by the town board of the town of Chatham on March 16, 2017 at 6 p.m. at the town of Chatham Town Hall to hear all interested parties regarding adoption of proposed law entitled Local Law Number 2 of the year 2017 to a local law to impose a 6-month moratorium on special use permits and site plan review for parcels located on unpaved town roads. And be it further resolved that the town clerk is hereby directed to publish the notice of hearing in the official newspaper as designated by the town board, and those copies of said proposed law are available for review at the town clerk's office. Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion?
This is for the public hearing, right?
Public hearing. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? This is local law, number 2 of 2017. A local law to impose a 6-month moratorium on special use permits and site plan review for parcels located on unpaved town roads, be it enacted by the town board of the town of Chatham as follows. Moratorium, local law number 1 of 2016 of the town of Chatham entitled Imposing a Temporary 12-Month Moratorium on Special Use Permits and Site Plan Review for parcels located on unpaved town roads, and each of its terms, conditions, and definitions shall be and hereby are extended for a period of 6 months from the date of the enactment of the local law. Section 2, Savings Clause. If any clause, sentence, paragraph, word, section, or part of this local law shall be adjusted by any court of competent jurisdiction to be unconstitutional, illegal, or invalid, such judgment shall not affect, impair, or invalidate the remainder thereof, but shall be confined in its operation of the clause, sentence, paragraph, word, section, or part thereof directly involved in the controversy in which such judgment shall have been rendered. Section 3, effective date. The local law shall take effect immediately upon filing with the Secretary of State. And this is a resolution to transfer funds from the contingency account for a new mower for Crellin Park. This is resolution 63 of 2017. Whereas the town of Chatham owns, maintains, and operates the property known as Crellin Park, located at State Route 66, Chatham, New York. Whereas the riding mower used for the past 11 years at Crellin Park needs major repairs. Whereas the town board authorized the purchase of a new riding mower and accepted the proposal by ACP Power Equipment in Ghent, New York for a Toro Z Master 3000 25 HP KOH with 72-inch, number 74959 for $7,299 delivered at the town board meeting of February 16, 2017, resolution 56, 2017. Now therefore be it resolved that the town board of the town of Chatham hereby authorizes the budget officer to transfer $7,299, the invoice price of the new Zorro Z Master 3000 mower from the contingency account A1990.400 to account number A7110.2 Parks and Equipment. Can I have a motion and a second?
So,
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. I don't have any more business to conduct, but we have one more public hearing.
Quick question. Cindy Elliott, I'm from Bush, New York. I'm a land surveyor, and so I'm not in your town, but I do a great deal of work in your town. I spoke with your new chairman, Gabrielle Sperry, on the planning board. I have a couple of questions on your local law, proposed number 2 of 2017, that you are now going to schedule a public hearing for. First, when will your public hearing be? On the 16th, which is your next meeting?
Right.
And it would be at 6 o'clock?
Right.
Okay. You have had a moratorium for a year now already, or am I not understanding that correctly?
2 years.
You've had a moratorium for, this would make it 2 years, you've had a 6 months, but your next one is 6 months.
Yes.
Correct. And so far you've had 2.5 years, and this extends it and makes it 3 years?
No.
This would make it 2.5.
Okay. That's getting to be unusual. And what is the goal that you see in your comprehensive plan? I'm not opposed to moratoriums. My town has done them periodically for large development, etc. But as a private land surveyor, and we want to do site plan work or whatever, I am going to be bringing a cluster subdivision, which is something that everybody talks about and says, gee golly whiz, isn't this a great thing? And nobody does one because they're tedious and difficult. I am planning to bring one to the town. It would not fall under this category, as I believe it's going to sit on a paved county road. But my questions, what's the purpose of the moratorium? Are we gaining any progress? How long are you going to keep jumping through those hoops? There gets to be a point where you can't make law by moratorium.
We are this close to finishing phase one, and
Phase one
Councilman
of
Bob Balcom is chairman of the advisory committee for the implementation, so.
Implementation of comprehensive plan.
Okay.
So we're very close to finishing the general code that would apply.
Okay.
That's the,
And we're hopeful, and I understand all those things, and you
We hope
have
it'll be finished before 6 months.
before 6 months. You know, New Scotland did that too with the big box law, and we kept extending them and extending them. And council is advising you that that is okay. Okay? I hope we make some progress. I haven't really looked that much on your comprehensive plan, but I will. You haven't been that busy in terms of subdivision and site plans, so I suppose this was a good time, but we just can't keep extending moratoriums, so I'm checking on you. Okay, I guess I'll be at the public hearing.
So our answer to her was that we have talked to our attorney and he's advising us that this is an okay thing to do, to extend it for another 6 months. Seems how we've had
That
no.
was the question, yes.
And I want to clarify, your answer was we have talked to the attorney and our attorney has said that we are okay with doing
He wrote
this.
the law, he wrote the public hearing.
Was he aware of how
We
long it's
spoke
been in
to-
place?
Yeah, we spoke to both attorneys,
Okay, because I've spoken to attorneys too and I'm getting just the opposite.
John Lyons and Southwell.
Okay, I just, because you know my feeling about this moratorium, it hasn't changed any, and I just want to make sure that our attorney is aware that this is going to be 2.5 years that we've had this thing in place. Okay.
Is there any other business? Then I'll take a motion to adjourn. Second? All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much.